So how do you want to be remembered in this space after kind of like stepping out of MDFI?
Oh, man, what a great question. The answer is in the sold out season of an MDFI that I no longer own.
Yo, welcome back to the show. Yo, before we move on to the second part of the interview with Trey from MDFI, I need to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and also leave a comment because it all matters. Also, let us know who would you like us to see this interview in the future. Maybe we can get him on the show, maybe we can't, but we definitely gonna try. But before you leave here, listen up real quick, come closer. Please hit that like and subscribe button because it matters. So let's get back to the show and see what's popping.
So another one of these good questions here. Lethal Weapon, right? Talking from the original, 87.
Oh, yeah.
Riggs and Murtaugh. Who's the MDFI student and who's the I need to unlearn everything I think I know student?
Oh, my God. Oh, man.
Who, between the two of them,
Murtaugh would make me feel a lot better on the line. I mean, when he needed to take that one shot, he got his.
He got that one.
He's the you suck. It's not the gun graduate. Riggs is shooting. He's drawing the smiley face, not hitting the target at all, but he's just showing off. Yeah, yeah. Riggs is the one that would make me drink a lot more.
Man, you know what's funny? when I saw this, it made me think of this. Do you know? I saw I think it was a YouTube post that said basically how it pointed out if you really look back and watch that scene, the same when the smiley face when they're in the range, how terrible he really is and was as a shooter. And as far as training,
back when they didn't have technical advisors, or oh god, it's so bad.
Dude, somebody slowed it down. He's literally squeaked like he was afraid to shoot. He's closing his eyes. He's kind of flinching. It's like he really didn't want to do it, even though they're more like shooting blanks. But it's like everything that you should be doing, he's not doing. Everything you shouldn't be doing, he's doing.
It's either that or the technical or the prop master gave him fake hearing protection, triple load blanks in an indoor range, and his brain is literally liquefying every single time he shoots that thing.
Right. So it's like, man, that's hilarious. That was hilarious.
Quick, so break down the whole person concept.
Yeah. So when I did the scorched earth policy with the curriculum and building MDFI up to a different thing in 2013, where you come from, in my specifically military background, we have acronyms for everything: the BX, the PX, APC, HQ, whatever it might be. And then there's a funny movie, Renaissance Man, with Danny DeVito. And at the beginning of the movie, he gets community service where he has to go teach service members that are failing at test scores, and he gets on base, and the gate guard's like, all right, you go 2 clicks down past the APC, turn right at the PX, and then go another click, and you'll find the building. And he's like, I know we're both speaking English, but I don't understand what you're saying.
Right.
And at the very end of the movie, someone asked Danny DeVito for directions. He does the same thing, two clicks down past the APCs, and that's the joke. And he is now acclimated to that, right? So the whole person concept was a way of saying, all right, I need to be able to, as an instructor, look at a bunch of people that don't have military background or law enforcement background, and I can't have them looking at me in a very limited amount of time going, I don't understand a word you're saying, even though I know you're speaking English. And I can't have my students take the information that we give them and go to, let's say that if I'm a plumber, and now I'm trying to talk to my sister that's a nurse, and she's got her own lingo, well, I don't want the same thing to happen. So what I did was I said, all right, let's break down every human, every American, into 4 distinct areas that we can all speak the same language on. And so they were mind, body, tools, and environment. And these are very, very basic, and I can use these to get certain points across when it comes to self-defense or any topic for that matter. And so the first one's mindset. And the reason it's the first one is because you guys probably know it. I fell very far from the tree. I know for a fact that no one in my family is going to listen to this podcast because we're talking about guns, and guns are evil. Thanksgiving dinner for me, my wife basically says, don't go to Thanksgiving jail, because if you make a political comment around me, I will absolutely respond in kind. So mindset. I have a lot of family members that and they're better about it now, but I have carried a gun professionally since I was 21 years old. On my 21st birthday, instead of partying, I got my May issue CPL from the state of Michigan to work for Brinks Incorporated. Mm-hmm. That was to, from, and during. I actually found it the other day. I still have it. To, from, and during work with Brinks Incorporated.
Nice.
I actually ended up having to file a complaint against a law enforcement officer for trying to jack me up because I was on my way to work and tried to say I couldn't carry a gun even though I was actually carrying openly.
Right.
Long story short. So we have family, though, or I have family that why do you carry a gun? And then we say to them, well, to protect myself. And they're like, well, I could never carry a gun. And you're like, why? And they're like, well, I could never take a human life. And you're like, what if they were trying to kill you? You go, no, I still couldn't kill that person that was trying to kill me. And you're like, so you'd rather die than survive? And they're like, yeah, I'd still be morally superior. And you're like, what if they tried to kill your kids? And then they go, I'd
right,
like Batman, right? So that is a mindset problem because they're locked in this, well, I can't carry a gun because I won't take a human life because it's morally superior to die a victim. But if they try to kill my kid, I will kill them. But I can't carry a gun, so I'm going to have to use a bucket of rocks or a can of wasp spray, all this stupid, like the stuff with the protecting the schools, right? Well, we now know, us, that we have the mindset. We've answered two very important questions. One, are you willing to acknowledge that evil exists? And I'm not talking biblical. I just mean whatever your definition of evil is. Mine is the guys like ISIS that were executing people in an assembly line by shooting them in the head. I don't know if you saw those videos.
Yeah, I've seen
executing people.
Yeah,
and then they pause and reload, like, and the guy's waiting, and bam, like that's evil. Pool of blood, muddy pool of blood down there. That's evil. I mean, these people need to be stopped.
Right.
The second thing that we've answered is, are you willing to kill one of those evil people to hug your loved ones again? And those of us that are in this world of like, yeah, I don't want to, but I'm making a home to my wife. I will hug her again, and I will make sure that my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is protected. Those people that are fighting us on the other side, they're just not there. But I bet you also have friends that were probably, and I have to, there's left and right. Generally, the left is anti-gun. Generally, right is not. We have people that were very left that are now very pro-gun. And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, when you ask them why, they got lucky. They survived something only by the very grace of the Almighty. And now they realized, hey, police were on their way. It took them 10 minutes to get to me. What am I supposed to do for 9 minutes, 59 seconds? And now they realized I'm actually a conservative. I just didn't know it because no one had ever put my life in jeopardy. So mindset's very important. If your brain can't go there, don't waste any more time. So we talk about mindset. Now the challenge for me is I can't teach mindset. You guys can't teach mindset.
Right.
Someone has to be willing to do the mental war gaming to get there. The only class that we teach that really get in mindset is When a Gun's Not an Option, which I still teach, and a class called The Human Element, which is all non-lethal training ammo scenarios. And I also teach that one. But if you don't have the mindset walking into the convenience store and somebody pulls out a gun and you're just like, well, I'm not going to defend myself, you're really in the wrong place because the scenario is not going to end well for you, right? So mindset's the first one. The next one's body. If the mind hasn't been there, the body won't go. But if the body's not ready, you got no chance. And so I say this now, I'm getting ready to turn 46. I rode 2014 for the Brian Terry Foundation. I rode a bicycle from Detroit to Arizona to the border for the Brian Terry Foundation. 25 days on the road, 100 miles-ish a day. I burned 7,000 calories a day. My ass still hurts when I look at a bike seat.
I remember that.
It was something. It was Herculean to me. I couldn't do it. You'd find me dead probably at the border of Michigan right now on a bicycle because I trained for 4 months every other day at a minimum on the bike. So I say this as someone that I've run marathons. My knees are shot now. I don't do it anymore. But I walk on it every night. Tonight when I get home, 3-hour drive, I'll be on the treadmill at a 12% incline for 3 miles because outside it's cold and I want to be inside. I'll put a movie on and I will sit there and I'll hump it up that mountain until the 3 miles gets hit because I like Chinese food. I like my booze. And I understand that if I don't balance physical fitness, I have 45 seconds of life in me at any given point in time. We are putting bad guys in gladiator academies. What do they have to do in there? Well, I get to mingle with other criminals. I get to survive against other criminals, and I get to work out, all on the taxpayer dime. Now, granted, of course, some people are going to rehabilitate. I hope they do. That's the whole purpose of it. And I hope they get their rights back. That's another topic.
Right.
If you come out of prison, you should get your rights back. But for another day, those that don't, and there are a great percentage of them, they've just become more lethal. And they've actually fought gladiator battles. All of us, for the most part, we've been in some scuffles, but
it's not the same.
It's not the same. We are training.
Yeah.
We're training we're exercising for a reality that we don't know. We're already behind the power curve. So what I tell people, and Dark Angel Medical, the guys there, my medical mentors, one of the best things is they talk about heart condition black. It is where your heart will go up to such a heart rate that's sustained pumping at that level can cause heart failure. The more cardiovascularly you are in shape, the less danger it is when that day happens. And it will happen to all of us. They have, there's a great movie example. I know you like movies, 22 Mile, Mark Wahlberg. Great movie.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
CIA hit team. Every time they go on a mission, they resign from the CIA, so they're not part of the company. Well, the opening part of the movie is they get ready to breach this Russian safe house, and they're acting like a husband-wife in the wrong address. And they have heart monitors on the husband and wife. And the husband's got a flashbang in his hand. And they go up to the door, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I think we have the wrong address." Well, the best part when they introduce the characters, the husband's heart rate's going, and the wife's is going, she's a cool cucumber, right? She's like a badass. So they've done it with SWAT teams. When a SWAT team gets ready to go through that door, even the most hardened dudes, their heart goes up into their throat. So what they're saying is, and I've had students that they get about halfway through cover and movement, and they're like, I got to tap out. Good. First of all, they realize they could put themselves or somebody else in jeopardy. But a lot of those people, all of a sudden, the next time I see them, man, you look thinner. You look thinner. And they're like, Trek, that scared me.
Right.
Like I was on the ground, I was on my back, and I couldn't even do a crunch to get good sights from a supine position. And I realized I got to do this because if I get knocked to my rear end, I can't even get up quickly.
Right.
And so that's body. Body is just saying, you got 45 seconds of fight. Make sure you've got a good 45 seconds of fight. So I like cross training. I chop wood. I love chopping wood. I got a lot of trees up there. So chop wood for some muscles, get on the treadmill for cardio, and just instead of taking the elevator, if you have the time, take the stairs and just try to, Andrew Tate, love him or hate him. I used to do a joke called the 10 for Tate. Set a timer on your clock, 10 push-ups. He was talking about if you just knock out like 100 push-ups a day as a grown man, you'll start to see great improvement. So 10 push-ups doesn't take much time. And if you only get 8 and you get tired, stop and owe yourself 2. And just keep doing that throughout the day. When we used to work guard shack, we'd be standing static for 12 hours, and we would set an egg timer. Every 10 minutes, it'd go off, and one of us would drop and do 10 push-ups. Just find a way to stay active, and that's all it is. The next one is tools, just like we've been talking about. Tools, the cool thing that separates from animals is the fact that we have tools. If you're going to be a gun carrier, you better be a good shot.
Yeah.
You better have tested equipment. When it comes to a handgun, I always tell people it needs to be a size that you will carry without excuse. Can't be too big, too small, too uncomfortable, whatever. It's got to be reliable. If you bought a gun and every single time you shoot it, you have a stoppage and you're not intentionally doing it, sell the gun. Stop using the gun because it's your scuba tank, right? And then you have to be able to shoot it accurately. So cars, most people drive a car. Most people don't know the actual rating of their tires. They don't know what their car's tires can actually do as far as speed. So know your car. You can get driver's training, advanced driver's training. Flashlights. Most people still think the strobe technique, right? Turn it on, turn it off is great. Well, all that is it's allowing the bad guy to use darkness to move on you. When you get into a shoot house, you want to flood that space with light, and you only turn light off when it's no longer needed. And there's very few times it's not needed when you're in a really dark structure. So just know your tools. Make sure that you're a master, or you'll never be a master, but strive towards mastery. And the next one's environment. And that a big example is if I think that me going to the grocery store in Luther, Michigan is the same as coming into Detroit proper, and I'm like, you know what? I'm by myself. I don't know anybody. I'm going to wear an LCP, no spare magazine, flip-flops, and I'm going to leave my car unlocked down here with all sorts of expensive stuff in it. Well, I can get away with that in Luther, Michigan. Why? Because if someone steals it, oh, there he is. It's the only other person, right? He's like right there holding my stuff.
Right.
So know your environment. And a lot of people, they don't carry a flashlight. Well, yeah, it's daylight. Well, you have to go in that dark house because you lost power, and now you can't see the adversary that's in there. So understanding that environment, whether it's I'm going to different locations, and I'll leave you with a good one. Ed Calderon, who I consider a mentor of lawful evil. He is an expert in the bad guys. He talks about when you travel, you can take your underwear and you can take your toothbrush, but you cannot take your definition of normal.
Right.
And he talks about avoid being a gray man, be a shapeshifter. Because gray man only works if you're an Ann Arbor gray man wearing hemp everything and tie-dye. You come to Detroit, you're not a gray man anymore. You stand out.
Right.
A shapeshifter can change in his location, and then Ed is a master of that. And he talks about a client that was down in Mexico, American client, and called him in a panic and said, Ed, there's a belt-fed machine gun mounted to pickup trucks at the gas station across my hotel. And he goes, what are they doing? They're like, they're buying gas. And he goes, oh, that's weird. And she goes, yeah, what are we going to do about the machine guns? He goes, no, that's normal. She goes, well, what's weird? He goes, well, those are cartel. That's normal. They have belt feds in their pickups. He goes, the fact that they're buying gas is weird because cartel takes gas. They don't buy gas, which means that's a cartel gas station, so you probably shouldn't go there.
Right.
Our definition of normal,
Right.
we cannot take with us. And so that's a mind, body, tools, and environment. It's just a way to look at whether we're teaching firearms, whether we're teaching martial arts, whether we're teaching flashlight techniques or home security. Look at things through those 4 things, and you can talk to anybody about it.
How much time do we got, you, Trey?
As long as you want.
Okay, because I had a couple questions. So my homeboy asked me this, and we probably homeboys outside of he asked me why do so many people got access to firearms? When somebody asks you that, like, it's too many people got access to firearms. How do you respond to that?
God bless America. This is a challenge. I'm a constitutional libertarian, but I acknowledge the fact the Libertarian Party has pretty much no chance of ever winning, so I have to start hedging bets. The biggest challenge that I have is I never want the government to ever be able to regulate anything about firearms. That's a double-edged sword, because what it means is we as civilians, as the population, have to regulate. But you can't let the government do it. So I'll give you a great example. Everybody should be able to have, every American, every human, but I'm just going to stick to America because we're Americans. Every American should be able to have as many firearms as they want. If you do something illegal or irresponsible with a firearm, you should have the book thrown at you.
And that's kind of what I told him. I said, listen, are you asking me about responsible armed citizens? That's another thing I always talk about because that was cemented in my head.
Sure.
Are we talking about responsible armed citizens? But where we from, there are no responsible armed citizens. So I said, so who are you asking me? Are you asking me should responsible armed citizens have access or illegal people that's getting guns illegal have access? We can't stop those.
Well, so
I was going to say too.
It's kind of.
You're right, and I agree with you. I was going to say, careful with that. I was being funny. I was going to say, careful with that statement about shouldn't have guns. Kind of.
Yeah, no. I mean, there are people, and I say this in classes.
Well, I'm talking about people that's not illegal.
No, I was being funny to the whole 2A and certain people that are super duper conservatives on the super far right that'll say, well, there's no reason we should never not have guns, but. When he makes perfect sense, and I agree with, like you said, if you do something stupid like that, yes, you shouldn't have. But
most failures come back to the government, and I'll give you some great examples. Well, you tell me that we incarcerate somebody for a crime, okay? They were found guilty by a jury of their peers, okay? What's the sentence? They go to prison. Why? Because that's the penance they're going to pay, okay? Well, you're letting them out. Why? Well, they've served their time. So you're telling me that they're now rehabilitated. Well, yeah, otherwise we'd be letting out a criminal. We would never admit to that. Why don't they get their rights back? That's a problem. If you're letting them out as the government, so if they're all of a sudden they're a bad guy and they commit another crime, government, you failed. Most bad guys getting their hands on guns were through the commission of a crime. So maybe if our government law enforcement program apprehended these guys, and oh, by the way, when they catch them, instead of a slap on the wrist, incarcerating them for the gun crimes that they committed. So a lot of the problems of the people that shouldn't legally have them fall down to the government. As far as our definition of shouldn't have them, there are 2 different types of people that have guns. Gun owners, simply the possessor of a firearm, and a responsibly armed citizen. Most gun owners think they are a responsibly armed citizen, but they have never been tested until they handle a gun. And maybe they are a responsibly armed citizen, but they always thought of themselves as simply a gun owner. When a gun owner proves not a responsibly armed citizen, it should not be up to the government as you can't own it. It needs to be the population saying, you have either committed a crime or you are not welcome here, like at a range. Spectacle Lake Outdoor Club, I bought it for all of 2 years, didn't work out as a commercial entity. I saved it. It is now a member-owned conservation club. I specifically put in the bylaws of the club because we've probably all been there. I don't want to get muzzled at a gun range, and it happens all the damn time. And then you go over and you tell the range officer, hey, I just got muzzled. They're like, hey, don't do that again. That's unacceptable. This guy almost killed me. So in the bylaws at Spectacle Lake, as a shareholder, if you put someone's life in jeopardy by muzzling them with a gun, you get 1 warning, and it's a suspension. The second time, your shares go away. That investment you put in is gone because you are in a club of responsible armed citizens, and you're a gun owner, and we will not allow a simple gun owner. So that's the challenge is preemptive laws, and I'll give you, here's a great one, that the Michigan Safe Storage Law. After the Oxford shooting, I get it. Those parents allowed a freaking serial killer. They bought him a gun with all of his mental health problems. They should have seen it. Now, the problem is they didn't commit the crime. They didn't commit the crime. So I have some problems with the way that the jury went on and on everything, but they are adults. The kid is a minor. Okay, we're going to hold them legally responsible. But then they double down on dumb. They make the Michigan Safe Storage Act saying if you don't lock these things up by the way the government says, and a minor gets access to them, you are now criminally responsible. Okay, I know what you're trying to stop. You're trying to stop another Oxford. They just had a minor. There were firearms locked up in the home. The parents were out. There was a coyote attacking. They were out rural. Coyote is attacking the dogs. The older sister, has access to the safe, gets access to a firearm, gives it to the brother, the younger brother, who has more skills, and the kid slips, allegedly, running out in his cowboy boots, which is not a good, cowboy boots have no traction, slips and bad finger discipline, NDs into his leg. They are now charging the parents under that act as criminals. That is a negligent issue. They were locked up. The gun was lawfully warranted, and the kid was negligent. I mean, we can argue training or whatever. It's not an accident. He was negligent. He shot himself. But those parents shouldn't go to jail. They had it locked up, and the guns were authorized for shooting coyotes.
Right.
And we know that kids can shoot guns. They're just not their guns. They're the parents' guns. It's their house. So this is the challenge, and we won't take up much more time, but we have to be very careful about saying the government, we the people as in the government, is saying you can't have guns because every American should be able to have as many guns as short as they want, full auto, but the moment you commit a crime, you should have the book thrown at you. And by the way, that's what I love about Rapid City, South Dakota, where I was stationed, Ellsworth Air Force Base. You pull a Glock out with a switch downtown Rapid City, some little old lady and her friends are going to pull out 44 mags and burn you down. Everybody's carrying a gun there.
Right.
There's cowboys there. So we know that an armed society is a polite society, and we know that states where gun rights are more enshrined are actually far safer. And we keep hearing that rigmarole from Chicago and all these other places going, well, it's the fault of the pro-gun states. It's like, no, it's your fault. You just won't admit it because you'd be wrong. Right. So yeah, that's a week-long conversation.
You know, I was about to pull it up. What you said about the coyote situation. Mm-hmm. That's kind of one of those situations when you teach a class and somebody asks you, "What if I?" Yeah. What if my sister gives me the keys and I go get it? Because I think the lawyer for the families is debating that the firearms were locked up. They were safe, so the law shouldn't apply to that. So somebody sent it to it, and I'm like, that's an interesting case because it's kind of like this is not what it was.
Well, and here's the failure too. I bet you if you look at that prosecutor's office, I would bet money there are cases of known criminals that got slaps on the wrist for preying on other human beings. This prosecutor is going after this family. That prosecutor has prosecutorial discretion and should go, I know what the law was supposed to be. Kid, I hope you get better. Hey, parents, teach him a little bit better. And kid, don't wear cowboy boots when you run down icy steps. But this should not be trying to incarcerate parents because it was not a Oxford type situation.
Right.
But this is the problem in today's day and age is the county that you live in, you could either have a very pro-rights prosecutor's office where they won't do stuff like this to you and they'll incarcerate bad guys, or you could have it where the bad guys keep getting slaps on the wrist and pro-gun people keep getting put in prison. And that's why we're seeing mass exodus of certain places in the country. And I truly fear a balkanization of the United States, where eventually you're going to have states that are pro-Constitution and states that want to abolish the Constitution. And it'll be like, hey, man, we just got in a car wreck. We got to make a run to the county line because once we get to the state line, they won't pursue us in because we know a jury here will never. And that's some scary stuff when we know a jury will simply rule for political party.
Well, you know, Killer Mike and Zeke and all them, you hear a lot of people talk about it's more important about your local officials than it is up there because
George Soros has proven that very much so. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was an interesting case. I'm still kind of like following that.
And it seems like there are some details that have not been released. Like, was it they say the gun went off. Yeah, I think the trigger was pulled unless it was a SIG 320. Sorry, SIG.
Right. whole nother.
This ends today.
Whole nother.
This ends
whole nother
today.
show.
But yeah, well, there's some details that need to come out, but it does not sound. It sounds like they have under oath or under affidavit stating they were secure. The older sister had access, unlocked it. I do not believe that is a case of criminal negligence.
Right.
It is negligence that led to injury, but it is not throw the parents in prison kind of
Okay,
stuff.
so just 60 seconds or less.
Sure.
What do you think about the case with the P320 and like all that? What is your thoughts about that?
So, I'm amazed Sig doubled down on dumb. I know for a fact that there is now, and this is 60 seconds or less. We at MDFI, I'm no longer the owners. Before, if I had been the owner of MDFI right now, SIGs 320s would not be allowed.
Wow.
Because there is now case law. There's now case law that they can, there's now examples, and it doesn't matter about the video examples. A jury has now said that they can go off on their own. Statistically, very unlikely, but if I'm sitting around on a briefing and your foot is near someone else's foot and that gun goes off and hits someone else, now if it hits your foot, you carry the 320. But if I allowed it now, knowing that there's case law that said they can go off on their own, I believe I would be culpable. I know the guys have some things in place. They're going to be making some, there will be some changes, 320s, but if I was in the seat right now, they would absolutely not be allowed because case law. And Glock owners, if all of a sudden case law came out and said Glocks, the system was unsafe.
How dare you say that?
I know, how dare it.
Well, because and you look at when you look at training the companies and you say, okay, what to bring, what not to bring. The Serpa holster is always like
it's always on there. Don't bring
it.
these.
The thing about
people watch it.
But here the thing with the Serpa is the Serpa has not been proven by case law to set firearms off. The Serpa puts a trigger finger deactive or activation button for the retention release, which people with bad 4 rules put their finger then on the draw stroke right into the trigger on a gun like a Glock with no manual safety, and therefore they ND based on it's not a design flaw, by a design feature. So what I will say about Serpas in my experience is there's a very small spring in there, and we've seen those break. If they break, the gun will seize up and not release the gun when you need it. And I know for a fact that FLETC, when I was there, they actually will not allow Serpas at any place in time. And you can grab a Serpa with it retained and rip the gun right out of the holster. They're like a pancake and they just break. So, but Serpas have not been proven by case law to set guns off. SIG now, and it's amazing to me, and I know why they're doing it. SIG is saying that if we fight, allegedly, if we fight every case as it comes up, we will lose less than admitting what everybody knows. Because imagine, with all the generals that got money in their pocket to get that 320 in the military's hands, if they have to recall all of them, SIG will disappear.
Right.
It will disappear.
And that, real quick on that, and that's the thing that like, in this whole fight, what they're actually doing with this fight too, is pushing you hard enough this way so that you forget about everything else that's been talked about that's coming out and people know. Like the fact that during the military trials for it, they had issues of it going up and things happening. And the people in the military said, hey, we like this, but you got these issues. You fix these issues or change these issues or whatever it may have been, and, we got you. And so they had to literally change the way the M17 and 18s were, because during military trials, even they were, that's going off.
Here's what I do know definitively. The person who runs SIG's Instagram account works for Kel-Tec's engineering department and did the same bump of cocaine when they did the PR-57 handgun, which I will be buying because it seems very interesting. But yeah, whoever did that post where like it ends today, they had little white powder all under their nose. They had no idea what sleeping giant they awoke.
You see everybody starting to kind of, you see the staccato one, they kind of trolled them too.
Oh, it's the internet lives forever. God bless the memes, meme wars.
Meme wars.
So I wanted to touch on something, and that's why I was grabbing at your paper, because I don't know if you saw this, wanted to talk about. I know you probably saw it. I want to talk to you about how this whole Shield Arms thing came to be.
The R.O.C.
With the R.O.C. and everything. And then not just how it came to be, but, and the success of it, and so forth. I want to touch on that.
Sure.
Just give people a breakdown of what it is, so forth, so forth.
Yeah, so for those that don't know,
You know about this?
I am the co-designer of the Shield Arms ROC, which is the revolver optics conversion, which you can buy right now. Shameless plug, so I can get my royalty checks. a good friend of mine named Z, I'll leave you with that. He's a very anonymous guy, worked for one of the big tech companies many years as an engineer, realized the evil of that system, and he now is a homesteader like me up in the middle of nowhere. We're both friends with Ed Calderon. Ed has a very different look on EDC, and he's made me really change the way that I look at everyday carry, specifically like knife use. I used to have here's my utility knife, here's my defensive knife, and Ed's like, how are you going to know I use your defensive knife if you never use it every day? So the knife that I carry for defense is not a knife that's for defense. It's a utility knife that I believe I could also use for defense if I ever had to. And so he's changed a lot of things. Well, Ed's really big on La Chata, which is a little snub-nosed revolver. And while I consider myself probably far more knowing in the firearms instruction realm, Ed's got the very different look on an SME of the way the bad guys are doing it. And so he tailors a lot of his classes to countering the true evil in the way that they practice. And he's a big proponent. And I love the idea of snub nose. I think they're great guns. Generally, they're higher recoiling. That's why I like the little 22 mags and 22 LRs. But they're very low capacity. And they're actually, by the shorter sight radius, they're notoriously far more difficult to aim. So Z and I were talking after an Ed Calderon class. We're like, maybe we did that same bump of cocaine that the Kel-Tec guys did. I don't know. We're sitting there and we're like, it'd be really cool. A red dot, like an RMR on top of a snub nose. And we're like, well, all right. We started jotting things down and we're like, well, we're going to have to do this mount. We're going to have to send it in. We're going to have to get an FFL and then we're going to have to mill people's guns, and people hate that. And I would hate that. And I was like, wait a second. I have an idea. Let's make it, it's solid, but not permanent, where someone can swap it out. And you can retroactively outfit 70 years worth of Smith & Wesson revolvers with this thing. And we came up with we bought a 3D printer, started doing 3D printed prototypes out of carbon fiber filament. It tested, it worked great on a 38, 22, and 22 mag. And I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm down in the desert. Z mocked one up on a yellow snub nose, which I've had pictures of. Yeah. I put it in a box in a Crown Royal bag, and I drove up to SHOT Show, and I made I know Brandon Zeter very well from Shield Arms, the CEO. He helped me with the Brian Terry ride. Been a friend with him for a long time. And I said, hey, man, I don't even have a ticket to the show. Can you meet me off the floor at a restaurant for like an hour? I got something to pitch to you. And he brought his COO, I believe, and I had a PDF flyer that my beautiful graphic designer wife put together, and this in a box, pitched the idea. They loved the idea, and it was born. So now, as of right now, we've got it it's made out of steel, aluminum. It is for the 442, 432, 642, 43C, 351 PD. So 38, 22, and 22 Magnum with more models coming soon. And what I love about it, the video is shooting a snub nose at 50 yards used to be like, I'm afraid I'm going to hit something like way out there. And now I've got videos of me with this little snub nose at 50 yards, just ringing steel one-handed. It's like cheating. And so the internet, I love pissing off the internet. I clearly did that with the design. All these people that I'm guessing never train. First of all, why do you got to put a red dot on it? It means you can't shoot. Well, that tells me a lot about your lack of training.
Right.
But a lot of people are like, well, it ruins the whole, you can't put it in a pocket. Well, you can put it in a pocket. I've put it in a pocket. But at the same time, if you don't want to carry it in a pocket, you want to carry it like a Filster City Special, which we talked to John at Filster. They made their City Special work for it. If you want to carry a little compact snub nose, you can now put a red dot. And if you have a 19 to 20% hit ratio and a gun that only holds 5 rounds, let's give you the best, accuracy you can possibly get.
Cheat code.
It's cheat codes, right? We're trying to add cheat codes. I love it. My personal favorite is on my 7-shot 22 mag. That thing doesn't move.
It probably rips.
It's great. At 50 yards, you can giggle when shooting it, right? I carry that from time to time, depending on the job. If I'm doing protective work, probably not. But if I'm running to the grocery store or something, I'll carry a spare speed loader in my pocket and good to go. And yeah, so what I really love about it is people are like, well, Taurus is already coming out with it. Yeah, these companies now, everyone on the red dot, they're coming out with RDO capable revolvers. We're saying you can take your grandfather's revolver and just take out 2 screws, put it on, and if you don't like it, or if you want to change it out, you just take it off, put the 2 screws back on. It's got cool Teflon sleeves so it doesn't mar up your revolver. And the only ones that we're working on, if you try to use it on a 357, it's going to shear those titanium screws right off. We have an idea for some of the 44s, because imagine hunting with a 44 6-inch with an RMR on it.
Right.
And it's not a permanent modification.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, it's very cool.
RMSC footprint.
What's that?
RMSC footprint.
We have currently for the RMRCC, which is not as popular than the Hollow Sun K.
Okay.
But you can if you want the little RMRCC. I prefer the K because I don't have to take the battery out and I have to re-zero it. That's just me, but the RMRCCs are solid.
Well, I only ask because typically a lot of those, the K and the C are for the most part about the same.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up. I forgot all about that, Barry. Appreciate it.
Man.
That's why you're here.
Yeah,
I was like, Trek
you know, I'm gonna do a little research myself as well. Plus, like I said, I follow the man, so I've seen these things. So it's like that's pretty slick and that's pretty cool. Like, what is this?
I wish all the blessed. Be a millionaire with it. Hey, change the game. That's definitely dope. So look, as a PI, like, how did you bring some of that teaching into like everyday carry and that experience in some of your curriculum?
I have always, military law enforcement officer, as I mentioned. I did a very short stint trying to be a reserve law enforcement officer in Lake County. When I put in for it, I had to do the interview. Frankly, I should have known from the interview that there was probably going to be issues just by kind of the attitude that I had got from the three interviewers. But I had a stack of my credential, all my training and everything from 10 years in the military, all my PI license and all that stuff. And all I had to do out of, I want to say, a couple weeks worth of classes was 4 classes is all they needed me to do to get my reserve badge. In the first class, I got a gun pointed at me in the classroom by the trainer. And I basically said, I'm out. Like, you know, if you guys, I get paid to have guns pointed at me, so I'm not going to do this for free, especially because they were going to make me carry a Glock 40, which to me, only people that carry 40s hate themselves. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. I love you, but don't hate yourself. So I was a military cop. I have not been a civilian cop. I don't wear the uniform anymore. I do not wear a duty belt anymore. I look at everything from an armed citizen point of view. As a PI, I do not have arrest powers. I have investigation. There's things that I can do that the average person cannot do in the state of Michigan, but it's not a lot. It's actually not a lot of stuff. We were kind of talking about that before we went on. So from the get-go, and what a lot of problems that instructors have out there, if you notice, most of the big name guys were either military, like special operations, or they're SWAT cops or something similar. When they have civilian classes, they talk to the civilians like they're either military or SWAT cops. Well, that's not making it relevant to the student. A great example. I've heard that there's a class out there for civilians. It's a blackjack and sap class, which is that lead-filled.
Heard of that too.
Well, that's a lethal weapon.
Yep.
And as Michiganders specifically, if you can hit somebody with a sap or a blackjack, you can shoot them. It's a lethal weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So there's guys that are ex-cops teaching civilians these sap classes. Now, some states, they're legal, but constitutionally, it's a deadly weapon. Mm-hmm. So, and I've even heard, there's people out there teaching less lethal knife techniques. My God, there's no such thing as a less lethal knife technique, but you got to be able to talk the lingo to your students. And so that's been very, very easy for me. Every gig that I have done since being out of the military, I have no special, in fact, all of the current SOPs that I write for my agents, my protective agents, specifically state in the arming use of force policy, you have no authority outside that of an armed citizen. And I make it very, very clear. We are protecting the persons that we have been hired to protect. We are not protecting their property. Our job is them. If they're trying to steal their car, protect them, let the car go, let the police deal with that. So it's been very, very easy for me when I talk to moms, dads, sisters, and brothers. I'm not like, when I go over and do a traffic stop, it's like, no, when I'm the guy getting pulled over, this is what I do. Because I was a cop, I understand what not to do and what to do. So I'm going to teach you how to call 911, what to expect from me when I show up. And you might be the bad guy in my eyes. So how not to be shot by me because I'm trying to do my job. And so that's it. I look at it from, okay, what did I do as a cop? How can I translate that because I am an armed citizen? And what can I make it more relevant to my students with? So like our upcoming class, When a Gun's Not an Option, I love it because I teach the whole class as I'm a wily citizen just like you, and I'm going to teach you legal tips and tricks to always be on the upper hand of a chess game. That's it.
You know what? We are probably getting close on time. We almost 2 hours, but I got a question that literally just something you said just kind of piqued my interest in how this goes. And if you can speak to this, cool. If not, we'll talk about it off camera or whatever. Being an executive protection or just protection in general,
sure,
to the degree of having to go to other places outside of the state of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're talking in terms of being a firearms carrier. and different rules. Like we said, different states do things different, so forth, so forth. When you're in a state that doesn't have or has more strenuous gun laws, say like a California, New York, or New Jersey, Oregon, or whatever it may be, but we're used to, let's say, being here. We're used to having, let's say, Glock 43X or Glock 19, something that's more than the 10 rounds and so forth. How does that apply, or how does that apply to you? And what I mean by that is it's kind of two-parter. One, do you have specific guns that you carry for those states when you're trying to abide by their laws? I don't want to say, quote unquote, do the laws not apply to you because of what you're doing, but how do you kind of handle that?
They very much do apply, and even more so because with our job, we are more likely, unlike the average citizen, to have to articulate why we use some sort of force, right? So the best way to answer the question is you have to start doing your research. I did do a detail in Pacific Palisades. I was there when the wildfire broke out. We did have to evacuate our clients. California, there's not much to be said.
Right.
Good luck with self-defense in California.
Right.
That said, I did transport a firearm to California. I did obey the laws of California. I did have to maintain the magazine restriction of the state. I did lose one of my blasters in the Airbnb that burned down as we evacuated. We've had to look into other gear that's California legal. At the same time, though, got to read up on the laws, make sure you know the laws, and then, in the absence of being illegal, get very creative. And I'll give you a great example. My wife and I did a trip to Bonaire. It was we had been married 4 years. We had not taken a honeymoon. We had some friends that offered us a spot in Airbnb. It was a thing we could not pass up. Went out of the country to a different nation that clearly was very anti-gun. Well, can't carry a firearm, but wouldn't you know it, my right leg that I really sprained it bad in Iraq my first night. And you know what? It works all the time, but it started getting really sore right before I went. And my takedown walking stick that I bring out when it really starts to bother me, that has a cue ball that's been affixed to the end on a big 4-inch screw and 3,000-pound epoxy, just so I can get a better grip on it. It accompanied me wherever I went on that island because my leg just bothered me quite a bit. Bic pens can be sharpened on hotel carpet in about 30 seconds. Pairs of scissors, takedown scissors, can be sharpened by a knife sharpener to be really sharp when you need to cut paper. So all I tell people is obey the letter of the law, but where the letter of the law stops, get very creative. I had a great instructor at the Federal Law Enforcement Academy that taught us ground fighting. And he said, every day, ground your duty belts. And we would take our duty belts off with our training weapons. And he goes, anyone know why I never tell you guys to ground all your weapons? And I raised my hand and said, because I would be laying with my head on the ground. And he said, that's exactly correct. And Ed says the same thing. Your brain is the weapon. So if they're, in Michigan, there's lots of things that are illegal to us at the intermediate level of force, but they make great lethal weapons when the constitutional use of force says that you can defend yourself from lethal force. You can now use what was illegal legally, and you're not breaking any laws, and I teach that stuff. So, yeah, it's tricky. There are places that we would outsource. We would simply say, hey, we can not bend the rules, but we can play in the rules, or we could just get guys that are specially licensed for this particular area that we have vetted, and we can tell the client we trust them, and you can trust them. There's some places that we just won't operate, but I was planning on just going out of the country with my clients. I ended up not going on their trip, and I was reviewing their laws. I was getting very, very creative, and I was making sure I didn't create an international incident, but I would give the best defense of myself and my clients that I could possibly muster. And that's about the best answer I can give you. But what you don't want to do, wherever you travel, whether you're in my line of work or a civilian, don't go to another place blind. Do your research. Make sure, because a place like, there are states where your CPL's expired, and they'll be like, dude, if a county will be like, just go get this taken care of. Yep. And there's places like California, you're going to prison. Yeah. And they will make an example out of you while they're slapping the wrists of guys that are knocking off convenience stores.
So what's one cool story you got as a PI? Like, it was like, oh, that was weird as hell.
The recent one that we just had in Palisades was pretty wild. It was clients were enjoying some time in the bright sunshiny weather. There were some fires going on in California. The air was pretty smoky when we got in. We were staying at an Airbnb pretty close to theirs, and we were on duty every day in case they needed something. If we would transport them around and whatnot. And we got the day before January 7th, we got a wind advisory that said it was going to be 80 to 100 mile an hour winds, which I just could not believe after being stationed in South Dakota, or even there. I don't believe it got that windy. And January 7th, we woke up to palm trees flying around. All the dry branches were hitting vehicles. I mean, it was people on the sidewalks were having to watch out. And basically, everyone was predicting there's going to be down lines, there's going to be fires. It's very dry in California because of they don't clean up the dry brush. It's very dry because of low water storage. And about, I want to say it was like 9 or 10 o'clock, and I say that because my relief was getting ready to join me for the day. I was listening to the LA West Division, LAPD West Division scanner, and they called in a helicopter to verify a structure fire on top of the mountains on the other side of Hollywood. And the chopper pilot said, yep, we've got a structure that's ablaze. Fire has fully engulfed the structure. I called it into our command center here in Michigan and said, hey, just a heads up, things are getting a little crazy. The wind's blowing. We looked at the prevailing wind. It was going due west out to sea. We were southwest. Figured that we were just fine. The cool thing about LA, the food trucks there are amazing. And there was a guy named Gracias Senors, and I'm glad that he's on wheels because he got out and his truck is just fine. I bought a breakfast burrito. My relief got there. I said, hey, man, I got to go back to the Airbnb real quick. It was 4 miles down the road. I'm going to have my breakfast and I'll come right back. I took a bite out of my burrito, used the restroom, just coming out to finish my breakfast. And all of a sudden, my boss, my partner said, hey, I need you back here now because they had a report of a second fire that was about 2 miles away from the residence. Drove back, threw my breakfast burrito in the fridge, grabbed my go bag, which is actually sitting right over here. It goes with me everywhere that I go. And I was on my way down. Turns out it was a false report. Got down there, there was no fire. It was actually the fire station. Someone gave the address. So called it in, false alarm, started to head back to go have my breakfast. And I looked at the mountain that I had been heading away from. I'm now heading back to the mountain, and that fire was huge. It had moved and engulfed so much of the mountain, white, thick smoke. I called it in. I told my partner, I said, listen, I'm going up on this parking garage in Pacific Palisades. I got to get a better eyes on. There's some pictures I posted on social media. And I said, we've got a big problem. That thing is coming. Immediately got the call, need you at the house. I pulled up, and this is where we start talking about, and I'm going to be sharing this with my wagon out class. You have to be ready in an emergency situation to break social norms. And here's a great one. The road that my clients were on, it's a 2-lane road, but everybody parks in the street. So it becomes a 1-lane road.
Right.
And you have to basically wave people through because there's only one way. Well, if I pulled up outside their house, I would have blocked the road, and there might be other people trying to get out. So I pulled up an SUV on a very expensive lawn because that's the place to go, and no one's going to yell at me because we've got a bigger thing to deal with. So I pulled up. I start getting clients in the vehicle. Now, where this comes down to is we had a pretty boring week right up beforehand, but what our job is about is that when we're not doing something, one of us is watching the clients, the other one, and it was my job, was putting together primary and secondary and tertiary evacuation routes. Primary routes are usually by car, picked up outside wherever they're at. Secondary is where we have to leave on foot to get to a car, and tertiary is where we get crazy, like helicopters on roofs and things like that. I had driven and built the primary, secondary, and tertiary routes days before and had them already annotated and built. Our operations center already had them. I had helicopter landing zones marked out, all sorts of crazy stuff. And luckily, once the clients were in the vehicle, I was already on the road to Santa Monica on the Pacific Coast Highway with the plan through this winding neighborhood that I had driven time and time again and didn't have to look at my phone for directions. We got them out of town. We got to a resort in the southwest of Los Angeles, where all of Hollywood was evacuating to, hours before the rest of the people realized it was time to leave. About 3 hours after we left, the client's residence burned to the ground. They were stating that the fire was moving 2 football fields a second.
Damn.
It was moving that fast, and we have surveillance camera footage of the fire coming right towards the house. I have a picture of the mall in Pacific Palisades on fire with the house key of our client's house and our coin, and it says January 7th, 2025, we did our job. And the cool thing was, because of our pre-planning, we didn't have to fight everybody out. We made a call. The clients, they didn't have to worry about the planning. We took care of them. They are safe to this day. very good friends of mine, and I'm very happy for that. And we can keep working for them. So I started that gig. I wasn't even supposed to start until 1 January. I was in California on 28 December. The ink on the sale of MDFI had not even dried yet. So that was my first welcome back to the biz. I hadn't done PI work actively since 2013. So now I was just down in Miami-Dade, and their fire has just surpassed Pacific Palisades. And for the record, I had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it, for the record. But yeah, so luckily when I was down there, there was no problem whatsoever. So yeah, it's a job.
I don't know how, but I forgot that. Yeah, they did just have a fire down there.
And I don't know what it's burning. It must be burning in the Everglades because it's a lot of swamp and a lot of water. But yeah, it's pretty big, evidently.
So quick, I say quick, but I asked you that and it told me quick.
Well, we can start the wrap.
Right. So we about to. So how do you want to be remembered in this space after kind of stepping out of MDFI?
Oh, man, what a great question. The answer is in the sold out season of an MDFI that I no longer own. I was so worried for the longest time when I first took over MDFI. It was, who's teaching this class? Who's teaching this class? And we would answer, a certified member of the MDFI cadre is teaching. And some people didn't come back to MDFI, and then people found out, hey, the quality of MDFI, doesn't matter who the instructor is, the quality of MDFI is the MDFI quality. I was worried until I wasn't. And then I realized that the guys I sold the company to, they have surpassed my expectations of the level of control and the level of skill. And I kind of just did a, hey, alumni, in one little post, I've sold the company, go forth into the night, and the guys have sold out every freaking class. And I'm not at the helm. I want to just disappear. I will be their friends. I will be their instructor. I'm going to go off onto a job where I get to be more of a quiet professional, other than coming on a podcast and talking about it. But I will be more of the quiet professional. They get to have the limelight. These young Thundercats, they're all about the Instagrams, and they're going to start doing the TikToks and all the, the cool shooting videos. That's not my life. I really hated that side of the industry, but I understand it's a very important part. So as I think it was MacArthur just said, good soldiers kind of just fade away. That's really my goal. And what I really look forward to is hopefully die of a ripe old age with my friends that are a little bit younger than me that sold it to someone else, and we're like, dude, MDFI is still rocking. How cool will that be? That's really it. So MDFI is about the mission, not the man, and I know the guys are going to carry that on.
I got to get into class. Hopefully it's probably sold out because I know you got the Samurai Project guy coming in at a Red Dot.
Scott. Yeah, Scott's got some heat. He fills up quick, and our classes are filling up quick. So I tell people, don't just assume because it's a Michigan-based school that they're gonna be spots right up until the end.
In the beginning, it kind of was, but then I started watching, and I was like, God, you gotta. As soon as that calendar drop, you involved. You got to be cart pay good.
Yep.
It is what it is. And usually we end up Trek, where can they find you at and all that. But since you kind of going slowly into the night.
Y'all don't really need to know where to find Trek.
Yeah, you don't really need to know where to find Trek. But look, if you like the heat we was dropping and the conversation we was doing, please hit that like and subscribe button at the bottom. Please share because we need all the support we can get.
Yes, sir.
If you want to take an MDFI class, where can they go to do MDFI stuff?
Absolutely. It's trainmdfi.com. And if you want to partake in our outside classes, like hosted instructors like Freddie Asuna, who's a tracker, Ed Calderon, it's northernwoodstraining.com. And that's our training facility up in Luther, Michigan with the shoot house, bushcraft area, and things like that. So and there is a link. So trainmdfi.com is going to be your best hub for all of that Michigan-based training.
So we didn't even get into the northern, because I haven't been up there to even check that out to see that. But a lot of them classes are up there at the Northern Woods facility. I remember when you first bought it and everything was going on. I need to get up there. So listen, for me, I'm just going to tell y'all, you got to go take an MDFI class. You got to go get that work. And hopefully Barry get in the class, come out and get some training with us.
That's the plan.
And I know we've been trying to get away from, but get more into training opposed to some of the competitions world. Just get back to the basics.
Both are good. Both are good to be involved in, that's for sure.
But we've been kind of in the competition world, so we want to get back to basics. So look, game recognize game. We recognize you, so please recognize us. Hit that like and subscribe button, please. And we out.
Hey.